Hit me, Tate.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Yes, this Christmas music. It's joyful and triumphant.
Jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells ring and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing, the bushels of fun. Now the jingle hop has begun. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells time and jingle bells time. Dancing and dancing in Jingle Bell Square. In the frosty air.
Look, Daddy, teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings.
Ho, ho, ho.
Where do you think you're going? Nobody's leaving. Nobody's walking out on this fun old-fashioned family Christmas. No, we're all in this together. This is a full-blown 4-alarm holiday emergency here. We're gonna press on, and we're gonna have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny fucking Kaye. And when Santa squeezes his fat white ass down that chimney tonight, he's gonna find the jolliest bunch of assholes this side of the nut house.
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, everybody, and welcome to the Good Day for a Movie podcast, Christmas edition. I am Jacob. Alongside me, as always, Tate.
What's up?
And Sage.
Yep.
And we are joined by Michael Nipp of the Deucecast Movie Show. Michael, how we doing?
Dude, I'm already having way much more fun on this show than my own show. So I've got the nog going.
Heck yeah.
Dave doesn't let me drink nog on the show, so there we go.
We'll let you drink anything here.
You can drink as much as you want on this one.
Hell yeah.
And
You're not allowed to drink on your podcast? That should be illegal.
Sage is like having a stroke over there about that.
Yeah.
Sage wouldn't do this podcast if we wouldn't allow that. The first few episodes, he was a little bit tipsy to get into the comfort zone.
I was so nervous. I did not want to do this. And I was the only way I'll be comfortable is if I'm drinking old fashions. And so the first 3 episodes, you can hear my voice is a little slurry. I had a couple.
Oh man,
a couple too many old fashions.
There's another podcast that I do that there is a famous episode of me on this podcast just completely just wasted. Energy drink and vodka is not a good idea.
Oh wow,
that's Tate's MO.
Yeah, I'm chilling. I'm chilling out a little bit now. I'm having Stella's.
No, yeah. That's pretty pretentious of you, but I'll allow it.
Yeah, I don't know what made me want to get him, but I was just like, I just saw him. I was like, wow, that looks kind of baller. And I was just like, I don't know if I've ever really bought Stella ever in my life.
Yeah.
Drinking more than welcome on this show. In fact, I think that it makes us all a little bit better. I think
you encourage it. In other words, I hear you.
Yeah.
Well, we are also live on YouTube. We are not going to go live on YouTube for every single episode, but for the big ones, for the special ones, we are like our Christmas special. So Merry Christmas, everybody. Before we get into the movie pick, I would like to know everybody's at least favorite couple of Christmas movies.
Well, and I want to quickly, I can start. And I also want to quickly give a shout out to all you and your Christmas gear. I don't have mine on yet, but who knows, maybe halfway through this, I might take a little bathroom break and come back with a change.
There we go.
Loving all the Christmas gear.
Go Ducks.
Favorite Christmas movies. Right. I mean, favorite one of all time, I think for me, is The Grinch with Jim Carrey. Just because I think growing up watching, we would watch that. It's like my mom's favorite movie. We would watch it maybe like 2 or 3 times every Christmas. Like
literally,
she absolutely loves it, and I actually do think it's a great Christmas movie. I think The Grinch is up there. I think the Christmas Story is up there. The Griswold one, Wonderful Life. Haven't seen Wonderful Life, but
it's fantastic. Nick from Podcast of the Wheels. It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
And then
one of his choices.
And sneak peek, but Gremlins is going to be up there.
Oh, I like it. I like it. Like what I'm hearing.
Sage, I can predict the first word that is going to come out of your mouth. Klaus.
Yeah, Klaus. That's a new favorite.
Wow.
That movie was exceptional. It's in
it's a good movie. Yeah,
probably my top movies for sure.
I like it.
Yeah. Grinch was always the favorite growing up, and my hot take. My one that gets these two fired up that I weirdly love is Love Actually. It's a 50-50. 50 people love it, 50 people hate it.
It's not bad.
But
it's not bad. Yeah. If you're gonna go like a holiday rom-com, The Holiday is more my. I like The Holiday a bit better.
That is on my Christmas movie list this year. I've got 25 of them. I'm about halfway through The Bishop's Wife. And of
Did
course,
you watch
Gremlins
Jack
is
Frost?
added to that list. I have not yet, but that is coming up.
Please don't.
Tomorrow, actually.
No.
Oh no. Thank you,
Michael.
Man. I've got to categorize this a bit. I mean, you've got like a traditional Christmas film. Honestly, it's White Christmas for me. Absolutely love that movie. Watch it every year. It's one of my favorite. If you're going like comedic, silly, Ernest Saves Christmas, I watched that as a kid, and it's just one that I love watching over and over again. And then non-traditional, I'd say Die Hard. I mean, that's a given. So yeah.
Yeah, Christmas Vacation is by and far away probably one of my favorite movies. It's probably right after the 6 Star Wars movies for favorite movies of all time.
Wow.
It's fantastic. I was one of the kids that watched it probably at way too young of an age, but loved it. Just a fantastic, fantastic movie.
Jacob, to me, you're a young Griswold.
Yeah.
You're a, what's his first name?
Clark.
Clark? Yeah, okay. You're a young Clark.
I bet Jacob aspires to be like Chevy Chase.
Yeah, I kind of pictured Jacob older as Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Not maybe Clark Griswold, maybe not
Clark
real
Griswold.
life Jesse Chase.
Yeah.
It's a Wonderful Life. I saw for the first time last year, and it's fantastic. Miracle on 34th Street, the original one, is also fantastic. And I just watched the 90s one last week or so, and that was also, I really enjoyed it.
Not
Richard
bad.
Attenborough,
yeah,
the old guy from Jurassic Park, was a fantastic Santa. And then I do fully agree with Nick here as well. The Rankin Bass specials, Rudolph, Frosty, all of those I loved as well growing up. Okay, so we are reviewing a Christmas movie, maybe a movie that many people may not realize is a Christmas movie, but I believe it is. Michael, would you like to introduce this movie?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, this is a movie that I grew up with. I'm old AF compared to you guys, and so this is a movie that I grew up with, and it has quite a bit of like clout behind it. If you just look at the beginning credits of this film, just the names that drop that are behind it, you've got like executive produced by Spielberg, Frank Marshall, Kathleen Kennedy, written by Chris Columbus, Jerry Goldsmith doing the score, and then of course directed by Joe Dante. Gremlins, 1984's Gremlins, freaking classic. I've seen it 5 billion times compared to you guys, I'm sure, since this was your first time watching it. And it's just, you know, I'll say this about it. I'm always going to give it, like, if you're talking letterbox score, and I don't know if I'm breaking the rules and giving a score too early.
Go ahead.
I'll just say the letterbox score. I won't do y'all's scoring system. The letterbox score I will always give it is 4 out of 5, because there is something that I would like to call nostalgia bias. I've seen it so many times, and even if like somebody watches it for the first time and thinks to themselves, this is kind of slow, I'm not really into this. This isn't, there's not much going on. First of all, it's very 80s. 80s movies were slow. Like, kids nowadays can't handle that type of thing. Like, I tried to show my kids Goonies, and they were immediately bored with it. Because movies back then were just kind of slower. It's just like the way it was. So yeah, nostalgia bias is there for me, and I'll be completely transparent with that. So I love it. I'll always love it. You know, and Hoyt Axton, who very strangely I realized was a country music singer, but didn't really realize it until I was going through my dad's record collection recently and listened to a Hoyt Axton album that had some really great stuff on it. So, I mean, it's pretty good, like classic. And this is like classic country music. This is a guy that was on Hee Haw. So it's, you know, it's a little bit different, but I love it. It's a great film.
Yeah. So I had obviously heard about this movie. Like just the circles I kind of run in on the internet. It's a classic 80s movie that I eventually wanted to watch, and I'm glad I have. My question for the other two is: had you guys heard of this movie?
I was just
Because
for sure,
I'm the only one. Then, yeah, I'd never heard of this movie, and even everybody I was at work, they're like, "You've never heard of Gremlins?" And I was like, "No." I was like, and when I looked it up, I was like, "Is this movie about Furbies?" Which we'll get into, but that was my first. I was like, "What is this?" And then so I've never heard of it. Didn't know. I mean, found out it was a Christmassy movie after you texted me that it's kind of our Christmas special. I was like, "Oh, this is a Christmas movie too? What?"
Yeah.
But no, very confused overall.
And Sage, your reaction when I texted everybody the pick, you were worried that it was going to be a scary movie, a horror movie.
So the only reason I knew what Gremlins were was because I'm not a horror film guy, and so like I kind of, I know my enemy. I know my enemies, so I avoid them. So, I kind of had a gist of what Gremlins were, and I was like, I ain't going there, and I avoided it.
Before we get into the review, I have this question for you. Were you afraid watching this movie at all?
No.
Okay,
When I looked more into it, I was like, I'm probably not going to have a problem. I did jump a couple times.
Oh yeah.
But imagine like an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old watching this, like nowadays. Like I've got a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. I probably, or I'm sorry, she's 11 now. I probably wouldn't let my kids watch Gremlins. In fact, my wife and I have had the conversation. Are we going to let them watch Gremlins yet? And we're like, no, they might get a little bit too scared. Back in the 80s, parents didn't give a rip. They're like, I watched freaking Die Hard when I was like 9. I mean, the parents back then were like, whatever. You can cross the street without looking. You don't have to buckle your seatbelt. I mean, it's different times, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I'm a better man for having seen it when I was a child. And, actually maybe a gateway to horror films a little bit. I mean, because, the practical effects were really pretty good in this. I mean, and Joe Dante was kind of like known for that. The practical, if you look at his filmography, very known for being someone that was on the cutting edge of all of the really freaky looking practical effects. So, I mean, and so there was some of that in this.
Were you how old you were the first time you ever saw this? But was there any sense of like, oh God, this is scary. This is a scary film. The first time you watched it, or was it always just kind of been?
No, I think, I probably saw it too young because I do remember like being scared by some of it. But like I said, parents back then didn't care. I mean, they just let the kids watch whatever they wanted to. I mean, there's a line you draw somewhere. But like I said, my dad took me to see Die Hard in the theater. I mean, and I was like 9. So, I mean, it's the good old days.
Well, I'm glad you kind of answered that because I was going to ask you if it's one that you still watch like a tradition, like every Christmas or not.
Yeah.
But and I don't know if you do, but it sounds like still not quite with the kids.
No, I haven't shown it to my kids yet. I mean, my wife and I love the movie, and so we have the conversation every Christmas. Is this the year we're going to let at least the 11-year-old maybe watch it? And we're still like, no, she hasn't seen enough scary stuff before. And she likes the Goosebumps movies, but those are so tame, like compared to, I think, some of like there's some like, Sage said he jumped a couple times. There's a little bit of scary stuff in this,
I'm sensitive. So to that realm of film, I'm
well, on that note, let's throw it to the other side. So we will see you on the other side. All right. And now we're on the other side. Let's talk about this movie. First reactions. I want Sage's first reactions actually to this movie.
It was funny. If I was a gremlin, I'd be one of those that went to Dolly's Tavern.
Yep. I made the note that's actually probably me on like a.
That's probably me. And
what the bartender sees is just like a bunch of gremlins just sitting at the bar, just causing chaos.
That's me in 9 days.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Tate, your first reactions. It sounds like you enjoyed this movie. You said this is going to be up there with your Christmas classics.
As far as Christmas, like I thought this was great, and I think it was just so different from every other Christmas movie. That's maybe why I really liked it. But I liked it for a few reasons. I laughed out loud a few times. I LOL'd like very hard at a couple moments, but throughout the movie, I just found myself finding a lot of things that like the Gremlins were doing, or just I don't know, just there's a lot of things we'll get into maybe, but I thought it was funny. I liked the I thought that there's like kind of also some dark events in it, which I think we'll get into, or like either lines that some characters said, or like things where you're like, oh, this is a fun family movie, and then all of a sudden there's like when the Gremlins were attacking, you're like, some of those things I was like, oh shit, this is not a kid's movie. Like with the mom,
Gremlin killed the teacher.
There's a couple. The Gremlin killing the teacher, but also the mom going into the kitchen. Like there's a few things in there where I was like, whoa.
Yeah, team mom.
But
yeah, she is awesome.
So I liked all those aspects of it, but I also kind of liked that it was just, an easy to watch film. Like I feel like it wasn't like, it doesn't make you, I feel like you could easily just kind of, if it was ever on the TV and it was around the holidays, I'd be like, oh hell yeah, I'm sitting down and just watching this. Like, while I'm having a beer, like doing something else, but having it on in the background and watching all the good parts. Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. This is a movie that I go into being like, I'm going to like this because so many people that I listen to their podcasts or whatever, like this is a great 80s movie. And I like those 80s. I don't know if this movie is too schlocky, but some of that, the 80s-ness of it, I love. And then just to kind of see the cast, and it's kind of a low-key stacked cast. There's kind of a lot of people that are like go on to do some things and have done things in the past where you're like, oh, they're in this. There's two people from Fast Times at Ridgemont High in this. This is crazy. Yeah, so I very much enjoyed it, and I am glad that I was not disappointed, because sometimes when I go into movies expecting to love them, you can get disappointed. But I did not for this one, that's for sure. Michael, what
yeah,
I don't know if the first reaction is the right question here, but
no, I mean, what I'll do is I'll say this. I mean, I'll start in 1982 with a movie called Fast Times in Ridgemont High. There are a lot of boys that became men to Phoebe Cates. And so 1984, she's in Gremlins, and we're like ready for more Phoebe Cates. Now, obviously, very different role, obviously, much more family friendly, but still, it was Phoebe Cates. And so that was a huge draw to guys my age back when this movie came out, was Phoebe Cates being in the film. You mentioned Judd Reinhold. He was more of like comedic type of stuff. He's sort of a doofus in Fast Times in Ridgemont High, but he was still kind of a jerk in this too. So it's interesting, a little bit typecast there. The Zach Galligan was kind of a newcomer. He really hadn't been in much to be like the star of the film, so that wasn't necessarily the draw. I really just think the draw back then was just the fact that Spielberg's name was attached to it somehow. And when you see his name, you automatically run through the list of movies that he's already done since 1984. And it's a huge amount of very popular, like #1 films of all time. And so that was a huge draw to being interested in it. It's got, what we call like that Amblin Entertainment vibe. That's right, Phoebe Cates.
Amen.
Nick knows what I'm talking. Nick and I are around the same age, so Nick knows what I'm talking about.
Sages too. I do want to share this. He sent a text. I'm assuming while he was watching the movie. Woo, Phoebe Cates, Pop the Molly, I'm sweating.
That's awesome.
When it was in the starting cast, I was like, I know that name. And then I saw Phoebe Cates, and I was like, whoo. Yeah, this movie just took a step up.
Yeah, you automatically add some points to the score with that.
Yeah.
So I mean, Amblin Entertainment was just a studio that you knew you wanted to see anything that they came out with. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, the only bad movie I think they ever did, and I don't know how Nick feels about this. I know he's seen this because everybody has, that was an Amblin guy, Batteries Not Included, was kind of like the first one of those Amblin Entertainment movies that I just did not dig. But really everything else was so awesome. And Joe Dante was an interesting choice for a movie like this because he was really from the horror realm a little bit, and kind of like the Lampoon style humor. He had directed some stuff early in his career that was very Lampoon-esque, and then he had some pretty famous stuff with a couple horror films before Gremlins. So it was a really interesting pairing of everybody together, and it worked like really well. But yeah, the comedy is one thing that I think comes through really well in it. There's a really hilarious, and it's all slapstick, like silliness, and it's fun though. And then one comment I wanted, did you guys notice Jonathan Banks in this movie? I don't know if you guys are Breaking Bad guys, but he's Mike from Breaking Bad, who is freaking awesome in Breaking Bad. But this was like one of his very early roles. He was the deputy or whatever in Gremlins.
I did not make that connection.
Yeah. So that's a cool Breaking Bad connection there.
Yeah. He plays Mike in Breaking Bad.
Yeah, he plays Mike in Breaking Bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So. Yes. Wow. I see it now.
Obviously, yeah.
This was a movie where I had no idea who any of the cast was. Like, to me, I knew none of the names. I think I recognized the douchey
Judge Reinhold.
Yeah. So I recognized him, but he was the only face that I recognized. I didn't know Phoebe Cates. Now I want to watch Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes, you do.
Yes,
you need to watch.
You've never
that
seen
movie.
it, Tate?
You need to pause this and go watch that movie. So
I'm gonna be right back, guys.
You might become a man to that movie. I'm just saying.
All right. I'm gonna watch that tonight, maybe. There is, I mean, I had no idea who any of these casts were, and I think that the only knock that I maybe have on this movie is that the acting was very 80s. That's the one thing that, like, the kid, it's mostly, I think, the teenage kid who's like the main character, who I thought that his acting overall was just kind of like, oh, whoa, oh, that's great, oh no,
it was a bit stiff.
Kind of like everyone else, I think, did their role fine.
What's interesting about that is, and not to totally interrupt you, even though I just interrupted you, but
you're good.
We interrupt people all the time on here.
Look at a really young Corey Feldman in this movie. I think was better than Zach Galligan. Like Corey Feldman, who had already been in a bunch of stuff. So he was the little kid.
The little kid. Yeah, he was great.
He was to me better than Zach Galligan, but I mean, and really, if you look at Zach Galligan's IMDb profile, he really didn't have much of a career. But
I did look, because I kind of looked that up for some of the other ones, and his was the one that I was most curious about, and I didn't recognize a single other thing that he's kind of been in, but it looks like he's been in a lot. So I was like, anywho, so he was the one where I was like, yeah, that's the only knock that I have. But then again, like, there's a few things in this movie that I feel like you just got to look past, because it's like, and like that, like his role, like his acting level in it is, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Maybe that's not like the goal of this movie. But anywho, as far as the cast goes, I didn't know any of them, but
as far as bad acting goes, I would throw the dad into it. I thought the dad's acting
Hoyt accent, yeah,
it was bad. It was really, like, between him and Billy, those were two pretty bad performances, and it's going to be a knock for me as well, because it wasn't just a bad performance. I could say, it kind of like Billy bothered me.
He was. I mean, he's a little stiff.
He was just like bad. Like
he's a little stiff.
Even when things would jump out, and he would just kind of be like his face expression didn't change. Just look.
I think back to when he's getting shot at, and he's just like laying there. He's like,
he's in like, the corner with like he gets hit by a tennis ball, and it's like he got hit by a cannon.
See, and all of this is good, because all of this is proof that a lot of this movie, not all of it, but a lot of it is that whole nostalgia bias thing. Like, if you've seen it first time when you were a kid, and you've watched it a ton of times after that, like, every memory of the movie is how good it is. But really, all the stuff you guys are saying is accurate. I mean,
Well, and the annoying thing about this movie is that you would have like 10 minutes of Billy driving you crazy, and then you would start laughing out loud at these gremlins getting wasted at the tavern, and it's like, what do you want me to feel? Because I'm loving these 10 minutes of these gremlins just having the time of their lives, and I was just pulling my hair out at Billy's acting. So it was a beautiful, it had its balance for sure.
Yeah.
And to maybe start from maybe like the beginning of the movie on a theme that kind of comes up several times in the movie that I think was awesome and I loved was the dad and his inventions, making the illogical logical. I like, and it happens so many times in the movie where like, and like a lot of times they don't even really address it. Like I think the first one was when she was just like, oh, here, I'm making some eggs, or can you crack the eggs? And so like he tries to use the egg cracking machine. None of it works. And like, and it seems like a lot of the things in the house, like even when they like the little things, like when they come in the door and the sword falls off the wall and he like puts it back up on the wall. And then when the dad gets home, he's home because the sword falls off the wall and he's just like whistling and putting it back up. And it's like, so everything in this house kind of seems to be like just not functional. And I love how many times they come back to that. Like the egg one was one invention. The juicer was another one.
Yeah.
Her thing to answer the phone.
Yes,
and
the phone answering thing.
Hilarious. And
the first thing we see is the multi-use Swiss Army knife with the.
How are you supposed to brush your teeth with that thing? It was at like a 90-degree angle with a brick. Like,
I loved the dad's enthusiasm about everything, and I loved the families like rallying behind him on it, and how just nothing worked that well. But they're all like, "Yeah, he's doing good. He's just coming up with new stuff all the time." But anyway, that was a recurring thing.
That's a very 80s trope also, to support the ne'er-do-well husband. I mean, that like Clark Griswold, like his wife, 100%. And the kids, they roll their eyes at him, but they still love him. If you made this movie like in the early 2000s, they'd be like, "Dad, you're such an a-hole and an idiot." I mean, it would just be like putting the dad down the whole time. In the 80s, it was at least, even though dad's an idiot, we're not going to tell him to his face. You know?
We're just going to say we love him and we're going to keep using his stuff.
That's right.
They have to make up excuses. She's like, "Oh no, I was just on the back porch, so that's why it wasn't working." The phone answering thing.
That's what I definitely. Some of them I like. You could kind of see, like, obviously the juicer, the egg crack one, but that was one where I was like, "What is that even? Like, what is she even trying to do? What is this invention supposed to accomplish?" But anyway, that was a recurrent.
Well, and they used it to control the lights too.
Yeah,
they were because he was like, "You need to dim the lights for the thing." Whatever its original name was. But
now this was not a dad invention, but it is something that needs to come back into my life, at least. The laundry chute. Laundry chutes are so cool.
Oh yeah.
I've never had a laundry chute, but
I had one when I was a kid. Yeah, they're great.
Amazing. Just this one of the
it's a very 80s thing. Laundry chutes really aren't a thing anymore. Yeah.
When I build a house like 40 years from now, I'm going to have a laundry chute.
I want a laundry chute and a dumbwaiter. Like, so like if I want something from the kitchen and the kids are downstairs in the kitchen, they can just send it up to me to the room. I mean, that's what I want, a dumbwaiter. Yeah.
Even just for myself, like I'm going to put in the dumbwaiter, send it up, and then walk upstairs. Like I don't want to walk upstairs with a bunch of food and drinks.
Well, you could kind of like, you could send it up and then like walk upstairs and forget about it. And then you get upstairs and you go, "Oh,
it's like our grandma always
surprise."
"Oh, who sent me this little old fashioned?"
Our grandma always forgets things in the microwave. So she'll like microwave some food and then she'll get distracted and then she'll go back to microwave something else the next day. And she'll be like, "What is this doing in here?" Kind of like that.
That's my dad with coffee. He'll microwave his coffee and then I'll be like, "Oh, it's time for dinner." I'll be like, "Did you want your coffee?" I do want to point out before we get too far, a fantastic Indiana Jones little Easter egg at the very beginning.
Oh,
of the
yeah,
billboard,
at the beginning.
the Ricky Rialto billboard. I don't know if you two picked up on that because you guys have barely seen Indiana Jones, but
man, that hurts to hear that you've barely seen Indiana Jones.
Just the first.
Oh God. Yeah. Okay. You guys have got a lot of movie watching to do.
Tate's seen it, he just doesn't remember it.
Yeah, that's maybe fair. I don't know.
Yeah, because I know we saw it,
but the Easter egg was good for those who.
Yeah, so it was a billboard of that radio guy, and DJ, like the cable was wrapped up. It looked like a whip, and the font was in the Indiana Jones font from the movie poster. I was like, Leo, Leo, snap.
You're like the Leo meme right there. It's that guy.
I was like, Spielberg. They did it.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, because there was later on in the department store, there was a quick shot of a stuffed animal, E.T.
Yeah.
The gremlin sticks his head out, and there's a little E.T. right there next to him. So
did see that one.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, is E.T. an 80s movie? I don't remember.
Yes. Yeah, it's a Spielberg directed Amblin Entertainment. Yeah, very, very 80s movie. Yeah.
Before you said that too, I would have totally guessed that E.T. was after this, but I have
I would have guessed E.T. was 90s.
No, it was 81, I think. I don't know.
I think so.
81,
Once I saw it
82,
in the
something
film, I
like
was
that.
like,
right.
okay. Yeah.
So Tay, you brought this up kind of at the beginning. This movie goes some dark places. Definitely a dark place when Phoebe Cates' character, tells a little story about why she doesn't like Christmas. Her dad
right?
was coming down the chimney and he fell and broke his neck, and they lit
Yeah.
a fire, and they're like, "Oh, what's that burning?"
And so these moments kind of come out of nowhere for like
right.
to me. I mean, like I get kind of caught up in like laughing and caught up in like being like, oh, these cute little fuzzy animals and like stuff that's happening. And then all of a sudden, and I think the first time that I recognized it was when he was walking her home, and she was just like, not everybody has a good time on Christmas. Some people are depressed, and like she like, I was like, oh shit, I was like, this is like real. This is some real stuff right here. And he was kind of like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't know that. Like, I don't know how to act in this moment.
She's like, the holiday season's when the suicide rate is at its highest.
Yeah.
Right.
And
like,
Exactly.
oh, okay.
Shit. Damn, this movie got real quick. And that was the first time. And then, so we come back to her, and then, and she tells that story about her family.
Mm-hmm.
Which is dark. I did not see that story going that way. And she was blunt about
But I really like that they brought at least that first part up, because I do think that it is probably true, and it is probably like, it is guaranteed true that like not everybody is always like happy on Christmas. Like for the most part, it's easy to think everybody is always happy on Christmas, but that's just not real life, and that there's definitely people out there that are depressed, and like because everybody else is so happy about everything else, then it maybe makes them more depressed. So after they said that line out, that's when I think the first time that I kind of got hooked into this, because I was like, I think that was early-ish on, where I was like, okay, this is a fun movie. I'm curious to see where it goes. And then when that scene happened, I was like, oh, whoa. I was like, this is maybe not the movie that I think it is, but that was one of my favorites.
So, yeah, I mean, 80s movies, for whatever reason, mixed themes are a thing in 80s movies, where like you're watching a comedy, or you're watching something that you think is going to go one way and they throw a curveball at you. That's a very 80s thing too. I mean, they weren't afraid of bringing up difficult subjects for whatever reason, in a comedy. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, they had no problem bringing that. Like it was like, oh yeah, for sure, that's in the script. Boom, go.
The thing that I was probably most fascinated about, because I didn't know this, is that Christopher Columbus wrote this movie. Director of Home Alone, and you can almost kind of see this movie has kind of a Home Alone vibe, where it's kind of a kid forced to take on this physical challenge, and so that was pretty neat. I didn't know he was like fully in the game in '84. Like,
I mean, this was like, I don't think he had really directed anything. He was still just writing screenplays and stuff like that, and so this was very early in his career. But I mean, there was certainly a lot of like Chris Columbus type of tropes within it as well. So I mean, a lot of really talented people involved in making this movie.
And the score was very good, of course. Jerry Goldsmith, absolute legend of a composer.
That Gremlins theme song, man, I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even want to hum it because that's stupid. But, I mean, it's a fun song.
Yeah.
And what I love about 80s movies that they got away from a lot. I mean, the good stuff still does it, like Star Wars and stuff. Like characters have their own themes.
Yes.
Like if you really listen to it, like Phoebe Cates' character, there's this sort of like, motif that starts playing when she comes on screen. It's the motif of, the Zach Galligan, I can't remember his character's name or whatever. He's in love with her or whatever. So there's like this like love motif. That's a lost art, man. I mean, that was such an 80s thing to do.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't pick up on. But I mean, I'm sure that, and I do want to, like, I also, one of the things I was going to say at the beginning was that this seems like a movie that the more you watch it, the more you can definitely pick up on little things. Cause it seems like there's a lot of either little lines or just like little actions that they all do. But I didn't even think about the music and behind score. So that's something that I'll keep my eye out for the next time I watch. For
yeah,
sure.
Jerry Goldsmith, like that dude's a legend. I mean, he's look at his IMDb profile. That dude has done the music for some huge movies in his career. So,
L.A. Confidential. I think I brought him up on that episode actually.
Yeah. He's been around a long time.
The other for me for the most part, but
one of my favorite movies, Hercules.
We definitely brought it up.
And he big time Disney guy too. Mulan, Hercules, I think a few others in there. Yeah. Definitely an absolute legend. I don't know, Tate, what else do you have for me?
Yeah, so I mean, a couple of the other notes that I got. One of the other notes that I got is that the dad is really good at the game Telephone because, and like that was maybe another hook where it like kind of hooks me in a little bit about what's going to happen. Was when the old Asian guy was like, you have to be very responsible about this. I can't sell to you because there's 3 rules. And he says what those rules are. And you're kind of like, can't see daylight. Okay, it'll kill him. Water, that one's weird. And then don't feed him after midnight. That one's really weird. So it's like, I mean, right off the bat, you're kind of like, you get this eerie. And I like that to bring that up at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But then when the dad comes home, he mimics that.
Yeah, he had the full explanation too. Like,
word for
more
word.
than we got at the beginning.
Yeah, like to the kid, he like perfectly describes all the responsibility and the hazards of this thing. But then the kid just obviously is like,
yeah, Billy's the only one that messed up.
Yeah, Billy's just a doofus.
Dude, that's like, Billy's. Yeah.
Like water got spilled onto the Mogwai, and he was just like, the Mogwai starts like screaming. And they're just like, oh no, what was in that? Like, I don't know, water. And Billy's just like, oh. And I was like, what? You Billy?
Yeah. Billy, you know the rule.
I was like, this is one of the main rules. Why are you not like freaking out about this? Like, he's just like, oh, who's in there? Oh, okay. And then they just sit there and like start popping out babies. And they're just so about it. That was crazy.
And then Billy's just giving these other Mogwai away and doesn't tell anybody any rules. So I'm like,
I was like, come on, Billy, there's 3 rules.
I have a question and a qualm about that part.
Okay.
Was the water cup a pencil holder?
I think it was flowers.
Okay.
I thought it was paintbrushes.
Oh,
but
maybe it was. Oh, that would make sense.
That would make sense because I was really. It looked like it was pens and pencils in a mason jar with water, and I was like,
"That's right. Billy is not fit to raise children."
Not at all.
Not on, Nick.
No.
Billy would have a kid and go, "Oh,
Phoebe Cates, steer away from Billy."
That's right.
Yeah. Steer.
I was putting myself in a little bit of a conundrum with the whole don't feed them after midnight. I'm like, well, when does after midnight end? Like they have to fall asleep, and then like what if you wake up at like 4 a.m? Can you feed them breakfast at 4 a.m?
That's true.
Or do you have to wait till like
that's one of those things you can't overthink.
I know.
You can't don't overthink
and I did it, and I've got myself stuck in a
I was like, how do these things know what the time zone that you're in?
That was another thought I had. I'm like, oh, he got it at some Asian market. I don't know what town they're in, but it's snowing. So maybe they were in California, and that's why. And then they revealed the clock wires. I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Revealed that.
So going to that, they did a weird, maybe bad job with the pencil holder, but then they did an incredibly clutch job with the clocks.
Yeah.
Because like his clock said before midnight, and then it went to the science teacher and his clock was at 2, and they were like at the same time. And it didn't click to me until afterwards where he pulled the wire. I was like, oh, there's a little foreshadowing from the science teacher that they fed him at the same time. And I was like, that's clever. Why'd they do the pencil holder? Why'd they do that?
Well, it was paintbrush. Yeah, it was a paintbrush holder.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Paintbrush. And I was in my brain at the moment. I was like,
because I guess he fancies himself like a comic artist or whatever, and so I don't know. Yeah,
which his drawings were pretty good.
Yeah, his drawings were good.
Did mention that, but that was another kind of note that I had. That was one thing that I just kept being like, I wanted to shake the TV and be like, Billy. I was like, I'm gonna be like, tell them the danger. Like, I just kept on being like Billy was just so, and like even the kids, when the kid was like, "Oh, can I have one?" and he was just like, "Oh, I don't know." I was like, thank God he just didn't give that. Like, it wasn't just giving him out. Oh yeah, here's another fun pet that you can have.
Even though the kid seemed more intelligent than Billy,
Yes.
but I mean, in general,
that
but
would have raised a good Mogwai.
Yeah.
But well, and the kind of so another dull Billy moment comes when
the whole movie.
They get fed, and then they like turn
Yeah.
into like these like eggs things, and he's like, oh no, and he goes to the school, and the guy's like, yeah, they're in some sort of metamorphosis where they're changing, and his first thought isn't, I have 6 of these in my house, right?
Yeah.
He's not worried about it.
Mom's home all alone.
Yeah, my mom's at home. I'm gonna go check on that. Like he's just like, oh, metamorphosis, they're changing. Cool. And he was just like, oh fuck. And while his mom dealing with 6 of these gremlins, like, so there's many Billy moments where I was like, Billy, go home. Billy, do this. But
I mean, it didn't matter because his mom just went Rambo on.
Yeah, she's luckily a badass, so
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter. Yeah,
that wasn't
turns the blender on. That was crazy, and then
The
she got
microwave.
the knife kill, and then the microwave and the head.
The
blows up. I
microwave
was
kill
like,
was
holy
very
cow!
crazy.
Kids are watching this. What are we doing?
So that was another like a moment where I was like, not a kids show. I was just like it was the first one about.
Oh no, but it was a kid's show in the 80s. That was a kid's show.
Like when she grabs the knife, and I was just like, oh no, she won't. And then she goes over and just like stabs him out. This is so I understand not wanting
that had to be a callback to Psycho, right?
Like,
oh yeah. There was a lot of cool callbacks, like the obviously the metamorphosis, like those things looked like the alien eggs. I mean, an Alien came out in '79, and so I mean, there was a lot of like homages to a lot of stuff. I mean, which is cool. I mean, I like it when that happens.
And Nick brought something up earlier in the chat. Did any of you notice that the town square is in the same one from Back to the Future?
Yeah.
So cool.
and then right underneath that, I think it was Garrison or Supash. He was like, a lot of movies shot at Universal, basically. So backlot, they have that same town square.
Yeah. And once he put that in there, I was like thinking back to it. And I was like, oh, I could totally see that. The towns look very much the same.
Yeah. They changed a couple things, and so tried to throw you off a little bit, but it's essentially the same thing. Yeah.
This seems like a movie for movie lovers. Like, I mean, already a few of these like little things you brought up, everything from, like the theme songs to like the callbacks to, I don't know, everything that it kind of like Back to the Future, E.T., all these things, Indiana Jones. Like, this seems like a movie that is kind of a fun project for people who really enjoy film.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a lot of why that movie was so successful, is because of those type of Easter eggs and those type of homages. I just think that, if you look, especially like in 1984, there was just so many like hugely successful movies that have stood the test of time. Like, obviously Ghostbusters is a huge franchise, and it's a franchise again. Gremlins, they're going to come out. They have a show coming out on Netflix, I think, next year. Either Netflix or Amazon. I can't remember which streaming service it's going to be on, but they're coming back also. I mean, and so all these like 80s franchises that still live on today. And a lot of it is just because old dudes like myself are still watching all this stuff, and we are craving everything nostalgic, and it's just, and we'll pay to go see it. So
I love it.
Okay, so you brought something up earlier, Tate. Gremlin and Furby. Is there some sort of connection there?
Big question here. Yeah, big question on my mind there.
Yeah, I mean, they do look very similar. I mean, I'm sure that some toy executive was like, hey, this thing looks like a gremlin, we can sell 1 million of these, and they did. I mean, so it worked, but I don't know if it was a direct homage, but it seems like it should be.
From what I read up a little bit on it, and it sounded like they are claiming that there's no tie between the two, and because Hasbro, I guess, is the one that created Furby, which I didn't know, but that makes sense. And then they said that later they did come out with Mogwai Furby, and
makes sense.
And they said that's where like people started to be like, is this where you initially got this idea to make Furbies? Like, is this how this happened? But there's no, it sounds like there's no direct correlation or direct, like, I don't know. It sounds like nobody sued each other off of rights to things.
No,
so,
I don't think so. Yeah.
I was wondering that though. I was just like, is this the, like, I kind of pictured in my head, like Furby's coming out and then them being like, hey, you stole this idea. And then Furby being like, this is original idea. Anywho, I was interested in that. To me, they looked exactly like Furbies.
No, they do. You're right. I mean, especially like when they're in that Mogwai state. I mean, they look exactly like a Furby. Yeah.
The Gremlins were quite scary. They were freaky little things. Like just the look at them, I was like, oh, this thing.
Sage is gonna have nightmares, man.
I was until they started slugging beers and smoking cigarettes and laughing. I was like, no, these guys are chill.
Yeah, right.
You just got to be one with the Gremlin.
Yeah, you just have to be one with the Gremlins.
That's right. That's right.
Just go in there.
I mean, look at Phoebe Cates. She got along fine. Just
that's
serving.
What I was going to say.
Yeah.
Well, so I liked how like serious it was at moments, and then it flipped back to, oh, this is all just like kind of fun and funny. Like, I mean, there were times where the Gremlins were going into these houses and like murdering people. And then they were also like just getting drunk in the bar, and she was just the bartender during all of this, and she was just like, "Oh no, a bad night." And then they would go to the movie theater and just have a bunch of popcorn and be all like, those were the scenes where I was like, I have no idea what this movie's going for, but I kind of like it.
I 100% agree.
I think it was just going for just zany insanity.
Just kind of like, all right, what would be funny? What should we do next? Oh, let's put it in a movie theater. Like, like that'll be awesome.
Yeah, watch Snow White and the
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. That was funny, and they're all singing it. I was like, yeah, this is the Gremlins aren't scary anymore. This is nice.
And they're all dressed up. Oh, wow. Okay, so I do have a note, kind of working towards later in the film, which like. When I was making my notes, I was kind of texting it to myself. But this one...
You have a notes app that you could use for notes.
I know.
That's too easy. That's too easy. It's much easier to... Dude, I do the same thing. When I'm thinking of something while I'm watching a movie, if I want to take a note, I text it to myself. I do the exact same thing.
I saw a whole bunch of texts just to myself. Well, and it's nice because like I hit it, and then I hit send, and then my phone buzzes, and I'm like, oh, who texted me? I'm like, oh.
But I don't do that.
Yeah, that's very very short-term story.
Yeah, you might need to get that checked out, dude. That's short-term memory.
Oh, right. But there was a couple of the texts that I accidentally sent to a friend, and they are so out of the blue. Because the two texts I sent was bar scene is gonna be me and my friends on New Year's Eve. I like the jazz Gremlin, and they replied, they were like, what? I was like, sorry, I've been thinking of stuff for like this entire movie, but they got those two texts, and that was my long point too. Jazz Gremlin was my favorite.
Yeah,
like you show all these,
he was chill.
Gremlins that were like, destroying things and like just being chaotic, and then it just shows him like smoking a cigarette, listening to jazz music.
He's like mumbling something. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, it's so awesome.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd chill with that Gremlin all day.
Probably
Did you have any
favorite
notes that you texted? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sage.
I was gonna say my favorite Gremlin interaction was because they did a lot of them were like recreating things that you would see in people and just most scenarios besides killing other people. Well, maybe not, but was when three of them were at the bar together. And one of them was just kind of waddling and then fell out of the chair. And one like looked and he was like, and he looked over to his buddy and he nudged him and then looked over. And the guy looked over and he's like, was slapping his knee. I was like, God, that's funny.
Kind of like just like at a certain point when there's so many that they just kind of became like resembling people. Like,
yeah.
Which is awesome.
Yes. And Gizmo driving the Barbie car was,
that's an
definitely
iconic
a scene that I've seen before
recreated. I mean, that's a thing.
I also loved the neighbor. Just with he's just like, oh,
the old dude,
foreign
cars.
Foreign cars. They put gremlins in our planes in the war.
Exactly. Which I think that is an homage to. There is a short in Twilight Zone, the movie, about that uses the terminology gremlin. It's the one where they're in the airplane and I think that came out in 82, so that would have been before this movie came out. So I think, and that's another Amblin Entertainment Spielberg type thing, like very referential to himself in this case, and a lot of moments in this movie. But I want to say that whole concept is from like Twilight Zone the movie. But
okay,
I was gonna say he kind of like earlier in the show when he's like, "Oh, there are gremlins in this engine," and he was all drunk. I was just like, does he know about gremlins, or does he? And then later when he was like, "Oh shit, there's actually gremlins driving my tractor," I was like,
right.
So
No,
I didn't. So that makes sense though that was a shout out.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, anybody have anything else before we go into some scores here?
My other notes were where to get a mini crossbow when he shot Billy with
they were in the sporting they were in the sporting goods section.
Yeah, but he was the gremlin. He had like a mini one. And I was like, it's crazy.
Oh,
they make them for kids back then in the 80s. I don't know.
I want to come back to they're in that store.
That's a good rebuttal.
And I love when Rock and Ricky came back on the radio. Like, like when the gremlins were like attacking, he was like on the radio. He's like, "Oh no, what's this happening? Oh no!" And then it goes away for a while.
And didn't he say we're going to start shooting with a fire hose?
Yeah.
When he came back.
Yeah, when he came back on the radio, he was like, "I'm back on though. Don't worry, we got some crazy people out here. We're going to shoot them with a fire hose."
Yeah.
But I just love how they kind of brought that back in the movie. I was just like, "Wow, gotta love Rock and Ricky."
Yeah.
And then the other that I had is just that it's funny. The dad kind of misses this whole thing. Like he's the one that kind of starts, like he brings the Mogwai home.
Right.
And then he goes off with the dog. And then he just comes back. He's like, "Holy shit, what happened?"
Yeah, exactly. The town's in shambles. He's at some convention. Yeah.
He's a gremlin in his blender.
Arm. Yeah. Head all over his house. And he's like, "What just happened?"
Yeah.
Gone for 2 days.
As we didn't talk about the evil banker lady too much, but she was a scary little villain in this movie.
Yep.
She made me so mad when she threatened his dog.
I know that scene.
What was that about?
That was harsh.
That was so hard when she was just like, "You better hope that
put it in a microwave."
Yeah.
A little bit of foreshadowing there, I guess. I didn't think about that.
As I said that, I was like,
yeah,
they microwaved a gremlin.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's the bankers. No, nobody in the 80s liked bankers. They were always the bad guys.
Well, and
the 80s bankers better go watch It's a Wonderful Life and be more like
right.
Jimmy Stewart.
Speaking of, maybe the part that I laughed the loudest was when she finally got her. I mean, whatever. Yeah, when she got killed by the
comeuppance.
Yeah, because like you know what's coming. You're like, you see her getting shot up this like stairwell. You're like, oh, this is gonna be good.
Yeah,
better than what I thought. Like just seeing her get launched through the window, I was like, that was the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. So,
yeah. Oh, the Deagle part where the gremlin's like Deagle. What the heck is this about? Like, why can a gremlin read? First of all, and it's like,
and he's like, oh yeah, God, Deagle. God, he's like,
I need water, gun.
Yeah, their little mumbling was another thing
funny.
that was like my favorite. Like whenever the little Mogwai would see the bright light, they'd be like, bright light, and like, or see like something and be like, yum, yum, yum. Like all those little sound bits that they had for them were very funny.
Yeah, and I mentioned it earlier, but because it's such a lost art, but like the practical effects, like especially at the very end when the gremlin is like disintegrating, that it looked pretty good. I mean, really good practical effects. And again, Joe Dante was kind of known for that, and so it was cool that we got to see some good practical effects. I miss those a lot.
Yep,
because everything's CGI now.
And like going into that a little bit, like I like the way that they did some of those scenes where it's like they don't show you necessarily, like they just show you that like it got through the vent or something like that.
Yeah,
like you kind of
killed the teacher.
Yeah,
and you just see the teacher. You don't actually have to see the teacher being mauled to death by the gremlin.
And it was like cool. That's great. I love it.
Yep.
You don't need to put up a ton of money into that or try and show that. Just
it's one of those things. Like, I wonder with a lot of these 80s movies if they would be rated PG-13 nowadays versus PG. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but I mean,
yeah, they may be.
Yeah,
I don't know. One thing I was going to say that kind of caught me off guard when I was looking at the cast was the voice actor for Gizmo is Howie Mandel.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was like, what
he was used a lot, and he does. If you look his early career was a lot of like random voice work that he did for a lot of 80s
like
movies.
the American Idol guy, is that Howie?
You mean America's Got Talent?
America's Got Talent. Yeah,
that Howie. Like
that dude's been around.
Would you like to make a deal?
Yeah,
that guy.
Yeah,
that dude has been around forever.
He was a big time comedian in like the late 80s,
yeah,
90s.
Stand-up comedian in the 80s. Yeah, I mean, and so he just had, and part of his stand-up act was using a really like childlike voice. And so, in fact, there was like a 90s cartoon that he made called Bobby's World. But in the 80s, he would be used for like weird voiceover stuff in movies. And yeah, I'd forgotten that point too. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though, the Gremlins thing. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move into some scores unless anybody has anything else they'd like to throw in. We're good.
The
Okay.
main Mogwai was cute. That's the last other thing that I haven't noted about. But
Yeah.
that I really
Gizmo's the
was
best.
awesome.
Yeah,
Gizmo.
Gizmo's awesome.
I want myself a Gizmo.
Yeah.
He hasn't
And
quite replaced
Gizmo's
Baby
gonna
Yoda in my
be-
heart, but
Yeah, the new series that's coming out is all about Gizmo. So there you go.
Yeah.
okay. Here's I know there's sequels, right? How?
Well, there's
how
just
are they?
one. There's just one.
sequel, okay.
Yeah, new batch. I personally don't like it as much. I think it was Garrison in the chat.
Mhm.
Think Looney Tunes and then watch New Batch. It's much more on a Looney Tunes level.
Mhm.
As far as now, and they just go like crazy with like they've got a winged gremlin that can fly, and so it just goes off the wall a little bit. I mean, they go too far with it, and so it's not my favorite. I like to just think of the original.
That's fair.
Yeah.
That is totally fair. Okay. From the aggregators here, a 7.3 out of 10 on IMDb, 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 70 on Metacritic. I have my score written down. It did not change in the review. It is an 85. I think this is a very good kind of 80s kids-ish movie that's just a lot of fun to watch, and definitely one that I want to rewatch because I think, like you guys were saying, can definitely pick up more information and kind of even just funny sequences with more viewings.
I can go next. This is a movie that I think I would have never, like, I didn't know about it, and even knowing like the name and reading the synopsis, I wouldn't have ever been like Christmas movie. But I think like it will be, I think, one that I'm going to watch more frequently around Christmas all the time. Cause it's just, it's different. Like, I mean, there's so many classic Christmas movies that you can watch, but I'm almost like, I wouldn't say tired of those, but I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, let's just go watch this one again. So this is a nice refresher for a new Christmas movie that I can watch. I thought it was hilarious, obviously. I don't know if I had kids, I'd show them to them yet. But I think I'm in the same boat as you on that. I was like, if I had kids, I think I'd wait a little bit for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was a great movie. And I think initially I was gonna land around an 80, but after this like review, thinking back to how much I like did enjoy it, like in the moment I was like, oh yeah, I enjoyed it. But thinking back to how hard I laughed at some of those moments, I think I just gotta give this an 85. I liked it a lot. So
nice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy it as much as these two. I think Billy and the dad really pulled me back a lot, particularly Billy.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Very fair. We sometimes we need you, Sage, on this one to kind of.
So, really, I mean, it was an entertaining movie, and it was much funnier than I thought it would be. And it has Phoebe Cates, so that's obvious.
Phoebe Cates 5-point bump.
So I started at 65. I did a minus 5-point Billy bump. And then I did a plus 10 Phoebe Cates bump.
Oh,
So
wow.
I landed at a 70 out of 100.
That's good. Hey, that's totally fair. I don't have any idea how y'all scoring really works. I don't know that you guys
don't
know how it
either.
really works.
Just assign a random number.
Because of nostalgia bias, I'm going to give it an 87, just so I can be ahead of you guys. So 87 out of 100. There you go.
Perfect.
Love
Yeah,
it.
no, I was thinking about that the other night. I was like, there's no real reason why I give a movie a certain score,
Yeah.
but in my head, like the numbers that I do give, and like even look
all
back on,
very
I'm like, no,
logical.
this all makes sense. This is exactly right. Like you'd think I'd have like, okay, how was the score? How was the acting? How was the writing? But no, it's just completely random.
I mean,
how do I feel?
Sage's 10-point Phoebe Cates bump should be a thing from now on. I mean, if
for sure is.
if Phoebe Cates is in a movie, always give it 10 points more than you were going to.
And it's always like an asterisk, like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It has Phoebe Cates. Yep.
10 points.
I'll watch it.
Boom.
It might be bad, but I'm gonna watch it.
In the same vein, you got to have your Billy bump also. Any movie, you always just got to. He's in it. All right, well, bam. All right, there's the 5 points.
The yin and the yang. The yin and the yang to cinematic making.
Billy, and then you got your Cates.
Our ability to score with the three of these, it's just we have no idea what we're doing. Particularly Tate. I guess on my screen he's this way, but
my whole thing is like if it's good, I'm somewhere between like 70 and 80 something, and if it's really good, I'm in the 90s, and if I'm like if it's just really bad, I just kind of pick a number on how angry I am. Somewhere between
but the problem
there's a key problem.
You only use 5s and 0s.
Yes, which is
number.
a problem.
It makes it a lot easier for me.
Yeah.
That's like your
just
4 stars, 4.5 stars kind of thing.
All right. Well, Michael, where can people follow you and listen to you?
Yeah, I'm mostly on Twitter as far as social media. It's at the Michael Nipp on Twitter. And that's not because I'm trying to make myself better. There's another dude out there that's Michael Nipp, and so I had to put the something before it. So I put the Michael Nipp because I'm the real one.
The or real.
The other dude doesn't tweet ever.
Now you sound to me like the original.
Yeah,
exactly. It's because I am. No, and then as far as my weekly podcast is the Deucecast Movie Show. We've been talking movies for over 11 years in that particular format. Many more years before that format. I've known my co-hosts for like 20 plus years. I've known both those guys, and so we for half of the time that we've known each other, we've been podcasting. So that's something to aspire to there, gentlemen. So we've been doing it a long time. That's every Wednesday on all the podcatchers. Just look up the Deucecast and you'll find it. I also do a YouTube show on Tuesdays. We go live and talk about, right now we're talking about Hawkeye. And then, of course, Roth is joining us for our Yellowstone discussion because that show is awesome and deserves to be talked about. And I guess we're going to be doing 1883 also when it starts. So it's never going to end.
Nope. The Taylor Sheridan has my wallet in his hand.
Yes, he does.
Heck yeah. And of course, Garrison is on there.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
All
Garrison,
things Marvel and Star Wars,
Garrison,
who is wonderful enough to join us in the comments tonight. Well, that's
fun, by the way, with the YouTube live in the comments. I love that. This is definitely very fun.
It adds a little bit more. It makes me stay up at least an hour longer than I normally would after I record a podcast because the adrenaline's just running just a little bit more.
Yeah.
But so that's an average score of 82 for this movie.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which I think 81.75 technically, but round that up to an 82. We do have a contest going on right now, and this is going to be the last episode you hear until before the podcast is over. The podcast. My word, I'm not.
How dare you?
Before the contest is over, let's try that again. December 31st at midnight. So at the end of 2021 is the last time you can get your reviews for this specific contest, and still leave us your reviews if you're listening to that afterwards. Leave us a review, tell a friend about it, take screenshots of that, send it to us on Twitter at GD4GD_movies. on Instagram at gd4gd.movies. You can email those to us at gd4ampodcast@gmail.com. And then you get a 4K or Blu-ray of your choosing. You get to come on and review a movie with us, and you get a piece of Good Day for a Movie podcast merchandise, sweatshirt, hoodie. So yeah, do that. What happens if you don't?
And if you don't, I'm going to put your head in the microwave.
If you don't, I'm going to make sure that you're never able to watch a movie with Phoebe Cates.
That's harsh.
If you
That's
don't,
very harsh.
If you don't, I'm going to make sure that you only watch movies with Billy.
That's worse.
That's the worst.
I'm going to feed you after midnight.
There you go.
Oh.
All right, folks. We'll see you next week at the movies. All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for joining. This was wonderful. And you guys, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And thank you, Michael,